Greetings, YouTube. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who subscribed this week. You've pushed me over the 1,000 mark, and I will be doing the Q&A video on this Friday. At least that's my current plan. But a number of the questions were a little too big to be answered in a Q&A video. It would end up being an hour and a half long. So I thought I'd take on a couple of them, or at least a few of them, in individual videos. Now, I've actually covered the following in a video in the past, but since nobody seems to be aware that it's been done, I think it probably needs to be updated, which isn't really shocking, seeing as how many videos I do have on my channel. It's gotten to the point where, frankly, I don't remember all of them sometimes. So, today I'm going to talk about my personal religious history. Now, I was raised in a Catholic family. My mother was raised Catholic, hardcore, down the line. Her father was Lutheran, but he went along with everything his wife said. There was no question that the children would be raised Catholic. My father was raised Methodist. My grandmother was a devout Methodist. But he was very non-committal. There was pretty much nothing he involved himself with religion. He'd go to church on Christmas and Easter, and that was about it. And his father was just the same way. So basically, my father's side of the family had no influence whatsoever on my religious beliefs. So my mother raised myself and my sister as Catholics. I was baptized. I took communion. I never actually was confirmed. I'll get to that reason to that in a minute. But when I was 5, one night I was saying my prayers, kneeling alongside the bed, looking up, doing the whole prayer thing, and I asked myself, why am I talking to the ceiling? Which is when I stopped being Catholic. By the time I hit high school, I became a pretty much dyed-in-the-wool atheist. And I was a fairly obnoxious atheist at that. After I graduated from high school, I was an avid reader. I'd always been an avid reader. I've read every single day of my life since I was 5 years old. Mostly fiction as when I was younger, but I got into nonfiction a lot after I graduated high school, and now I don't read anything but. But as I moved in from fiction to history and into philosophy, I got myself reading a lot of Taoism and a lot of Zen Buddhism, the works of Thomas Merton and Alan Watts, and that really began to open up my mind to the concept that there were things that weren't being answered by my current belief system, my current worldview, that there was a void in my life. So at 19, I really began to pursue what that emptiness was. So I basically became an agnostic. And between the ages of 19 and 22, I pursued that further. At some point, and I don't know when it happened, one night I looked up in the night sky, and as a joke, I wished upon a star. And the next time I saw a star, I did it. And the next. And the next. And then one night, I find myself referring to the moon as mistress from the Heinlein's novel, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. An excellent story, by the way. I recommend it. And I continued to do that for months. And all this time, I've been reading about different faiths of the world, the history of religion, things like that. And then one night I realized I wasn't talking to the moon. I was praying. And I was praying to the feminine, which is to me what the moon represents. To a goddess. I pursued it some more, and very shortly after that, around at age 22, I formally became a worshiper of my goddess. And my goddess has never revealed a name to me. I've never needed one. For me, she is the mother, the maiden, the crone. She is the symbol of fertility, of life and death, the cycle that we all live, the harvesting of grain, the slaying of humanity, the gathering of animals for our consumption. She is the creator, and she is the destroyer. She is the circle of life in and of itself. I imagine her in my mind a great deal like a proud Norse warrior with a little Native American tossed in there. I always imagine her with a bow, a sword, and a sickle. For me, these are the symbols that represent what she does, the gathering of grains, of life, and of death amongst men. And I remained just that, a worshiper of my goddess, between ages 22 and 32. But around 32, I began to realize that once again I felt an emptiness. I felt an imbalance. So I started pursuing things again. And then one day it finally clicked in my head that what I had been seeking was a masculine element in my life. That I had covered the feminine. I had covered what she was to me and what I needed her to be in my life. But I was out of balance. So I began to ponder. What was the masculine representative to me in the spiritual, in the divine? And eventually, I fell upon the idea that it was Ta. That's Ptah. It's Egyptian. And Ta has been viewed a number of different ways in Egyptian mythology. Realize that the Egyptian mythos is awe-inspiringly long. It covers a lot of eras. And gods had different phases in those eras, and they were viewed in different ways over time. Some became popular, less popular, they faded, and they came through, people's ideas about the deities change. And Ta has been viewed as the creator of the universe. He has been viewed as the keeper of knowledge, of a god of the crafters, of craftsmen. And eventually I began to see him as the dual persona, as the keeper of knowledge and the person that is responsible for all crafting. The spiritual essence of craftsmanship. And that is how I worship him in my life. So at 32, I finally have the two halves of my faith. And I envision Ta as a tall, black-skinned man, like absolute black. I mean, there's no light black, like a silhouette black, with eyes like fields of stars. And to me, that is who he is. And since then, he's 32, I'm now 46, I have worshipped both of my deities this way. I view them as spiritual superiors, as mentors, as guides, but they are not authoritarians. They do not tell me what to do. They lead me by example. They point me in the direction, but I've got to walk the path myself. If I don't do the work, I don't get anywhere. My gods don't give anything to me. But I pray to them every day, and I have, at least in the case of my goddess, for 24 years now. I've come up with some of my own prayers. I've come up with some of my own rituals. I have occasionally worked magic on my own. I have sought advice from others when it came to magical workings and things who had more experience than I do. But I always am a solo practitioner. It's not something I want to get involved with others. Though I have shared my prayers and some of my rituals with my wife because she's asked to see them, asked to participate in them. The most important one I do every year is on Halloween. Halloween is the Day of the Dead. It is the day that the veil between our world and the next grows thin. And I leave out an offering of food for the dead. And I say a prayer, a greeting, and a welcome, and a warning. Benevolent spirits are always welcome in my home. And malevolent spirits are always barred from my home. And I've lived with both over the years. The malevolent ones went away. But I have enjoyed living with some of the benevolent ones. Nothing here. This place is a Faraday cage for everything. Radio frequencies to the spirits. Nothing's in this place. But my last place had some spirits in it, and I kind of missed them. It was pleasant, never really being alone. But that's my spiritual history. That's how I end up where I am, how I made a connection with the divine, and how I think it's important. And I apologize if what I'm about to say offends any people who are atheists in the world, because it is not meant to be. But for me, a path of knowledge, of self-discovery, of reading, of pursuing all there is in the universe, pointed me in the direction that says you cannot be anything but a theist. That if you open up your mind and you perceive the world for what it is, if you actually want to grasp reality in all its facets, you must include the spiritual and the divine in that. Otherwise, you are forever going to be blind to things that you really need to see. I hope that I'm a whole lot less obnoxious about this than I was when I was an atheist. I was a real prat at some points in my life. But that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I've never really asked anyone to follow me. I don't consider myself a great example. I've given advice to people who sought it and who asked. But I don't want people thinking that I'm some kind of spiritual or religious leader, because I'm not. I don't want the gig. Even though you do get a tax-exempt status in that particular regard in America. Which I actually think should be done away with, but that's just me. So, that's who I am. That's where I came from. It's where I am. And it's where I'm going. So, to the people who've asked me this, and there's been more than one over the last couple of years, you've got your answer. I hope it satisfies you.